All right, we are live inside the Profitable Christian Business Owners community, and I am so pleased to have Aleah Williamson with me today. Aleah, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, it's been a hectic day, but an amazing day at the same time. So, God is good, is all I got to say. Um,
Yeah.
we're going to get into your story and your expertise here in just a little bit, but I like to start off with you just kind of giving a brief introduction of who you are and what you do.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. And Doug, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. My name is Aleah Williamson. I'm the president and CEO of A Woman's Mindset LLC. My company specializes in strategic planning and development, project management, and process improvement with a key focus on health, wellness, and financial literacy training. Many of you may be thinking, why health, wellness, and financial literacy? I started Women's Mindset in 2019 based on health struggles that I had experienced and watching staff that I oversee and a lot of my colleagues that I was working with and still working with. A lot of them were having deteriorating health problems, financial problems, family difficulties. And COVID really exposed a lot of the issues we tend to ignore because our lives just become so busy. So I began helping my staff and helping a lot of my colleagues and clients really across a lot of professional industries, alleviate a lot of the burnout that they were feeling, some of the financial hardships that were impacting their relationships and their family, in really working with them to increase their ability to function at an optimal level so that they can plan for their future goals and have hope for the future.
Nice, nice. We're going to dive even more into that story in just a few minutes. I like to also start and kind of get to know the guest a little bit. It's not always about business, right? It's about knowing
Yep.
people, right? That's how business is done, is to better know people. So, what is a book or movie that has had a significant impact on you, um, in your life?
Well, I'm going to reference two books here. There's
Oh,
way too many
nice.
movies to go through. But the first book is called The Tongue, a Creative
Oh,
Force by Charles Capps. It was my first real transition from being a negative person with
mm,
negative thinking to a person focused more on what God says about me and my purpose and my circumstances. I grew up in a very negative household.
mm,
My mother escaped domestic violence, and she raised myself and my brother on her own. And as many of you parents out there who are caring for children, you completely understand that it's hard to raise children. And when you have to do it alone, you feel alone. So I wanted to try to get myself out of that rut, of that constant cycle of negative thinking. And one of the other books that I want to include here is many of you may already know it is a perfect purpose driven life
mm.
by Pastor Rick Warren. I read both these books in different times in my life. The perspective that it's left me with really has stayed with me for years, and I've read through both of them three times. So I would say that anything that motivates you, go back to it again and
Mhm.
again. Because it always gives you new perspective every time you read it again. And like so many people, anxiety, stress, worry, and doubt about my abilities, my purpose, has left me, with this overwhelming feeling about how I could possibly, how could I possibly be happy with my life? And one of the things that both of those books clarified for me was that my happiness would come from the work I do in service to others. And a lot of people, I kind of question that when I read both of those books. I have my own problems. How can I focus on other people and not on myself? And I truly understood that once I started to really take action with it.
Wow. I have a lot of to say about that because you and I resonate so much in the way of positive thinking. And what I wrote down while you were talking is happiness is not an outcome. Happiness is the journey, right?
Exactly.
I think so many people put I'll be happy when I'll be happy when, right?
Yes. Yes.
Why not be happy
We have our
now?
own expectations for happiness. And sometimes when we meet them, we're still not happy.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times we're chasing the wrong thing.
exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
so good. And the purpose driven life, oh, what I was going to reference about that is you said you read these books 3 times. That is a very key point. A lot of us like will pick up a book, we'll read it, put it back on the shelf, and then go get another book. Um, and what is important is applying what you read, right, to your life. It means you may need to reread the book several times.
Exactly, exactly. You may have to write some more notes and you go back to it in different stages and seasons in your life where you're just like,
Hmm.
I need to go back to this. I need to get that perspective again. I need to read and absorb this all over again.
Yep.
And I felt like that many times in my life.
Nice, nice. Now let's kind of switch gears a little bit. Outside of your professional life, like what kind of hobbies and things do you enjoy?
Um, well, I have a wonderful family that God has blessed me with. So I love traveling with them, going on family vacations, and spending time with my husband and my two small children, Jackson and Sophia. But I was a dancer for a long time, and
Wow.
I went to school for dance, ballet, jazz, modern, hip hop, African, and other, native forms of dance like capoeira. For those of
Mhm.
you out there who know what that is,
I don't.
which is an Afro Brazilian martial art.
Wow.
Love that. I love different cultures. I love to learn new things. Right now, I take a lot of bar classes, generally, and work out on a regular basis. But I'll be taking some adult classes at a studio that my daughter is enrolled in now. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
Um, and one thing that has added to my balance in, physical activity and work is, prayer, meditation, and, really just truly studying the Bible. I know a lot of people set this goal of reading the Bible, in a year. I didn't give myself that goal. I basically said, I want to read it to understand it and apply it. And I think honestly, it's going to take the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about a book that you should go back and reference frequently.
Exactly.
There's no
Exactly.
better book than that, right? It's
Exactly.
all spelled out right in that book. The other books are just a little icing on the cake, if you will, or um,
Exactly. They provide a bit of perspective when you're, reading through the Bible. But again, I try, and I think it's important for everyone to really read the Bible. I mean, of course, there's a lot of aspects of it that may be very confusing, which it was to me in the beginning. And, constantly listening to sermons and reading books that really tie into the parables
mhm.
outlined within the Bible. I think you, I think the Holy Spirit really kind of gives you perspective during those certain times in your life. And then that's where a lot of that knowledge and clarity and understanding come from. um, I didn't realize that initially, but when I kept going back and I'm just like, what does this mean? And then certain things would start to happen in my life. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get that now. I think that that's just a part of the journey.
Mhm.
And it has truly, really helped me develop myself in really taking that guidance from the Holy Spirit. So I'm a truly different person from how I used to be, just put it that
Nice.
way.
And it's so interesting to me how things seem to be just in time, right? You get a message, you go
Oh
to
my
church, and the
gosh.
message just seems this message is for
It was for
me.
you, like, you needed to be there.
Yeah. Or
I
you open
completely
the Bible to a certain, like not really going
Yep.
anywhere, but opening it up, and that particular what you open up to was for you.
Yeah,
Um,
it was what you needed to hear for that day, for that time, in that season. It was perfect.
yeah, yeah, and that's just the way God works.
I know, I
It's
know.
it's
He's
it's
speaking
it's
to us all
amazing.
the time. Yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
so if you could travel any place in the world, past or present, where would you go, and what experience would you want to have?
Um, Several years ago, my husband and I, we traveled to different islands within Greece when we
Ooh.
were dating, and it was amazing. Again, I love to experience different cultures. And I would love to go back there, one day with my kids. But I would say, I would love to go on a pilgrimage to Israel
Ooh.
to visit and explore the sites in the New Testament. I've always been, extremely intrigued about just the history of my husband is a huge history buff. He's always watching documentaries about how changes in certain eras have changed the trajectory of history and the growth or downfall of a monarchy, or in our case, a democracy.
Hmm.
So I would just say really understanding how history has changed the way things are currently now, and really the changes that are taking place now that will have some historical implication on, future changes for our children. I really just love to dig into those things. I find them completely interesting, and having that knowledge base, I think it really puts a lot of things that you do now in your life into perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, anybody will, it'll have to calm down in Israel before anyone can really go there.
I know, and honestly, that's everywhere.
Yeah.
Because the time, I think it was 2008 when we went to Greece, and we had just returned back, and it was like September in 2008, and I believe that's when riots broke out in
Mm,
Athens at that time, and they were lighting buildings on fire, and I was like, oh my gosh, we were there a month ago, and the
hmm.
place was so peaceful, but this is the world that we live in.
Yeah, our church went, it was a month right before the conflict in Israel broke out. Our members from our church were there. And it's just crazy, crazy to think about.
It is. It is.
So speaking of history a little bit, this is kind of a shameless plug for me because I have this book, Dear Younger Me, I Wish You Knew 15 Powerful Letters That Will Change Your Life. Um, there are me and 13 other authors, and we basically wrote letters to our younger selves. What would, like being where we are now, what would we go back and say to our younger self? So I've been asking every entrepreneur that comes on the show, um, what would you tell your younger self, like, if you could go back, and what age would your younger self be when you talk to
Um, how much time do we have? Oh,
them?
okay. I would honestly say trust God.
Mm,
I always felt as if I had to have a strategy for my life from the beginning to end. But the outcomes that I was anticipating really most of the time never panned out, leading to more negative thoughts and negative feelings. And I mean, let's be real. When we're young, we have all these high expectations for our lives. And when that doesn't happen at a certain time, based on a schedule that we have set, it tends to lead us to a nervous breakdown.
mm,
And honestly, that happened to me.
mhm,
I tried to take my life in my early 20s, and, God saved me. I thought I just had no worth, that I didn't have a purpose, and I really didn't know where I was going to go. Um, but God slowly, kind of moved me and told me to trust Him. And I did that. I started to trust Him, more and more. Of course, it's hard for us to relinquish control over
mhm,
the things in our lives because we feel like we need to have this sense of control. But if you think about it, we're not in control of anything.
mm.
And I really had to come to terms with that. Um, so, I still have a long way to go.
We all do.
Yeah, yeah, and, I just, I try not to have, depressed thoughts and feelings about how I can be a failure, or honestly comparing myself to others around me. Just really being in gratitude every day for where God has me now and how He's preparing me for what's next. Although I still may worry from time to time, the difference is being able to switch those negative thoughts and knowing that any negative thought that drops into my head, and honestly, I think for all of us, the moment that we wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror, the negative thoughts begin.
Mm,
Okay, about the day, about yesterday, about tomorrow. And just being able to calm that down and know that these thoughts are not from God. This is our fear speaking, this is anxiety about the world that we live in. It allows me to just jump right back into that safe place that I have with Him and ride out the storm
mhm.
and take it from there.
Nice, nice. That is so beautifully said. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
So this is another thing that I do every time I have a guest on the entrepreneur journey is the fill in the blank question, and it's always related to entrepreneurship because I find it really interesting what the entrepreneurs do to fill in the blanks. Your fill in the blank question is entrepreneurship is blank to me because blank.
Entrepreneurship is God's calling,
Mm,
um, to me because entrepreneurs start a business based on a need to improve a process, a service, or
mm,
an outcome for others.
mm.
So when our focus is to be in service to others, our purpose becomes much more clear.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love that. I love the fill in the blank question. Now let's dive into your
Yeah.
story. You've alluded to a lot of your story already. So um
Okay.
just start us off wherever you want to, fill it, like fill in some of the gaps that you haven't told us about already, and kind of take us to where you are now.
Well, I started out really in nonprofit. Again, my mother was a survivor of domestic violence, and I saw how she struggled a lot in life, and that really focused my attention on helping other women and children who were dealing with the same
Mm,
situation. So, I'm from Connecticut. I was born in Florida, but I
mm,
lived, most of my life in Connecticut. So I spent a lot of that time in between school, doing internships and doing a lot of work and volunteer work for non assault and human trafficking victims. That's really where I started a lot of my service work. And I found complete satisfaction in the work that I was doing. I felt like the work that I was doing had purpose. And then, once my husband and I started dating, we moved to Maryland. And a lot of my career, kind of shifted. And I was started to do more work, public and private sector as it relates to just local, state, and federal services. Um, Being able to provide support. And then I slowly transitioned into IT technical work, which I
mm,
did not think that I had the brains or the guts for. Um, but again, I found it just interesting. And I was really driven to it more because I saw how my mother, when she became disabled, was trying to acquire SSI, which is,
mm,
a form of benefits for those with disabilities. And just the hoops that she had to jump
mm,
through. I mean, I was a young adult and I was working 2 jobs, and I was, completely overwhelmed by the process. So someone who is disabled may not have someone to
mm.
support or help them gain services that they need to function from day to day. To have to make people go through that process, I thought was appalling. So I really just I took the onus of really learning how a lot of those services work that is provided by the federal, state, and local governments, and really tried to jump in to determine how to streamline a lot of that work.
Nice, nice.
And that's where I am now.
Nice, nice. So let's kind of dive into some of your expertise. I think you said health,
Okay.
wellness, and financial, like repeat that for me, or what you said at the beginning.
Literacy.
Financial literacy. So let's dive into
Health,
some of
wellness, and
that.
financial literacy.
Uh,
Okay.
so what I like to start with is the secret question. So we want to know your secret. What is the secret to
Okay.
leveraging personal adversities to empower and educate others?
Um, I would say the ingredient for my secret sauce is empathy.
Mm,
Um, this all goes back to purpose. We're all seeking to understand how to add value in our families, our careers, and our communities. We may try different things which don't necessarily work out um, on the way to our purpose. So, but I've always figured that learning something new, gaining a new perspective, and growing is, keys toward longevity that we're seeking to have, attain and acquire success. And again, at the end of the day, the service that you're providing, the value that you're providing to those around you, um, that is how you leverage a lot of other opportunities and you really pull other people up with you.
yeah, yeah, I love that. There was something you said about you try a lot of different things working towards your purpose, and it just made the thought of Edison pop into my head. Edison had tried so many different experiments to finally get the light bulb, right? I don't remember the exact number, but it seemed like it was thousands or something. Um, but he did not give up. He knew what he was trying to accomplish. Um, so that just really brought that to mind. So thank you for sharing that.
And what was his response when people had asked him, why do you keep failing, to figure out how to utilize, create light so that it can
Hmm.
be used? And he's like, I didn't fail. I just found a whole bunch of different ways that don't work.
Exactly,
And I love
exactly. Yep,
that.
yep, yep.
I
Um,
absolutely love
I think all entrepreneurs can take that to heart. Is like you're going to try a bunch of things that may not work, but it's all in the process of learning what exactly does work. So,
Yeah, and the sign that you have behind you, dreams don't work unless you do. And it's just
yep.
like, it doesn't make us failures. It just makes us, more willing to
Hmm.
expose ourselves to, honestly, criticism. But usually the people that criticize you are the ones that aren't really doing much.
Hmm.
And use that as an opportunity to help them understand what their purpose is. So, I love that. It really, fear is what keeps us from doing
Hmm.
so many things in our lives.
Yep.
And it's hard. It can
Yeah.
definitely be hard. And that's truly where you talk about going back to the Bible, reading certain say, understanding that God is with you. And
Hmm.
again, if God's with you, who can be against you?
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. I love that. So my next question for you is, in your experience, how do you focus on work-life balance? Um, and how does that contribute to overall? Oh, let me restart this. See, I told you sometimes I mess up on the. Let me ask this question again. In your experience, how do you focus on work-life balance, and how does that contribute to your overall well-being and success, both personally and professionally?
Well, balance is a critical component for our mental, physical, and overall well being. When people use the term quality of life, balance attributes to the level of quality you will have. Um, a couple of examples. If you work 365 days a year and you never take a break, you're probably going to have a nervous breakdown before you get even close to the end of the year.
Hmm.
If you eat fast food for every meal every day for a year, your health is more than likely, and I can really guarantee this, that it will deteriorate again before you get to the end of the year. Balance is a part of nature. We're not machines. So we are not immune to the level of symmetry that having balance creates in our lives. So, you have to understand the importance between what you're doing, where you're going, and how you're preparing for that, and all the other things around you, your family, your community, etc. You can't be everything to everyone. And that's where, setting boundaries, really works, and understanding that people pleasing aspect that we all get caught up into, that web and that net where, you always have to pull yourself out because, I go to our local church, Westminster Baptist, and our Pastor Matt, he was just preaching about, that savior complex,
Mm,
where you want to help people, you love to help people, but you have to understand that God has a set path for you. You need to stick with that, and allow Him to work through all the other people that are to do their part. We have to work together. So, again, it requires balance.
yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of a couple things. Like when you mention a pastor, I really pray for my pastor all the time because he has a congregation and he deals with everyone's problems, right? And
All
so
the
that perspective, he can't save everyone. So he relies on the other people in the congregation to help him um, with the congregation.
time.
So that's a very, very
It's a
good point.
family. It's a family, and you have to treat it as such.
Yep.
We have to support one another, although there may be a leader, at the helm, guiding us. We still have a level of responsibility to guide each other.
Yep.
So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can
Yeah,
help someone else.
exactly. Exactly. You need to know when you have to take a step back. And it's
Hmm.
okay. People have this feeling that, you know, saying that I need a break, saying that I may not be able to do this. It may show a form of weakness. It's not. It's understanding your balance and understanding that, you can ask God for strength and resilience through all types of storms, but at the end of the day, you need to just settle in his shadow and just
Mm,
wait for him to fix things and pray on it. You
hmm
can't fix everything, but it doesn't mean that you can't be there for people, but sometimes you may just need to be there for yourself. And that's
hmm
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very good. Because honestly, if you give too much of yourself, you have nothing left to give anyone.
Exactly,
So,
exactly, and that's where exhaustion sets
yep,
in, and all of the other things start to break loose, and you can't handle it.
yeah, yeah. Wow, I love this conversation.
Good.
This is so good. Now let's kind of talk about leadership a little bit. So, given your I lost an earbud. Hold on. All right, this is two edits. Okay, so given your experience in leadership development, what key qualities do you believe make an effective and inspiring leader in today's business landscape?
Um, I would say again, I mentioned this a couple times, empathy.
Mm,
Many leaders confuse empathy, and we were just talking about this with like having a bleeding heart or, weakness, especially for a woman in leadership, for someone like me. And I've had that told to me a couple of times by some of my male colleagues that, if you empathize with people too much, you're going to think you're weak.
mm-mm,
Not at all. Really, as a society, we focus so heavily on strength, diligence, perseverance. But empathy, again, is seen as this broken part of, a toolbox. You open up a toolbox and you have a tool, and you're like, I can't use it because it's not strong enough for me
mm,
to use for what I need it for. But empathy to me is one of the strongest things in a leadership's toolbox. I've been more successful in my role as a leader and as an entrepreneur through empathy than through any other form of leadership.
yeah.
Many leaders, they really fail to understand that their role is to help their people, protect them, cultivate their growth and career advancement. Initially, I was completely overwhelmed by the level of responsibility that I had with managing multiple teams and a lot of the outcomes that I needed to be successful with. And then I remember that God was just like, okay, just be in service to those that you're working with, that you're working through, and that you're working towards an outcome for. And things will kind of develop on their own. So I really began to truly get to know my staff, and a lot of the colleagues and the people that I was collaborating with across the board, and really kind of understanding their fears and their roles and understanding how to gain their trust. I began to, once I gained that trust, I was able to challenge them a bit more to kind of step out of their comfort zone, which really allowed me to adjust the scope of their work. So I was able to take those personal relationships and align them with the aspect of their work with what they truly cared about.
Mm,
So that trust that was built improved their views about their job, and gave them hope about the future of their careers. And that created a stable environment for a lot of the continuous innovation and growth that I needed to be able to provide as outcomes for my leadership, and the things that they wanted to see. When you talk about um, that culture shift, and you talk about cultivating staff and really being able to gain buy-in, people have to trust you for that, but they also have to trust that you care about them.
hmm
So once I got a true understanding of what they wanted to do with their lives, the things that they were passionate about, there's always an opportunity for you to adjust the roles and the tasks that they currently have, giving them an opportunity to kind of open up and to get access to a lot of that knowledge and a lot of the training, that they're looking to get, so that they can kind of really step out into their purpose and have a greater satisfaction in their overall role, which will really give them a stepping stone for the career that they really want to break out into.
Wow. So much good leadership advice in that. That is Great.
I
What?
really went based on how I felt as well too when I was a lower level staff person in
Mhm.
a lot of my roles. Not having anyone care about what I really wanted really added to my level of depression. And I always said to myself, if I ever became a leader, I would not do that to anyone.
What came to mind when you were talking was empathy gets buy-in, right? Empathy, when you're empathize with your staff, they don't buy into a vision from someone that's like a totalitarian, that's like a dictator. They'll buy in when they know that you care. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And they also buy in when they know that I'm the type of person that I'll walk in a room and I know I'm not the smartest person there. All the people around the table are smarter than me. I just do a good job at bringing people together to collaborate. That's my primary role. But my question is always to them, how can I help you? How can I support you? Because I know with the success that they have will allow a lot of the things that I'm responsible for to be successful.
yeah, I don't know if you've ever watched the show New Amsterdam.
Yes,
Um,
I have, and,
and-
the doctor always walks in, "How can I help?"
exactly,
I love
yeah. The leader of the hospital was a servant leader, right?
Yeah,
And there's so much to
exactly.
be said about that and how they respected him and how they followed him. That's how you do
Even
it.
though he had ideas where they felt like, "Okay, this is crazy," because I've had the same vision and ideas, and people are like, "How are we gonna get there?" And I would say, "We're gonna do it together."
Hmm.
And a lot of the things that I put on the table, they were successful, the team was successful, I was successful because of them, and
Hmm.
it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. I love you said because of them, because that is another trait of leadership is you don't take all the credit
Of
for what your
course.
team does. It's a collaborative effort. And
Exactly.
that's the right way to
Again,
do
I'm
it.
not the smartest person in the room, and I think a lot of leaders need to recognize that you're not the smartest person in the room. And one thing that I've always said is that if you walk into a large conference room and there's a ton of people in there, even if you're the executive or the primary person, anyone that doesn't know anyone in there should not know that you're the decision maker.
Mm,
Typically, if I go in a conference room, I'm not sitting at the main table. I'm sitting in the back on the side
mm,
because I want to hear the collaboration. All the people at the table are the subject matter experts. I need to be hearing from them. And that's how you make informed decisions.
yeah. And there's a lesson in there about entrepreneurship too, is because too many entrepreneurs try to wear all the hats, right? And they try
Mhm.
to be the expert in all the things. It's
Mhm.
better to hire someone that's smarter than you in that particular area, um, and build a team so that all that collaboration comes together and you have all those super smart people in all their different expertise. So,
Yeah, that's how you solve problems. And honestly, you can't be a jack of all trades. You know,
right.
it's when we just talked about spreading yourself too thin and trying to
Hmm.
take on too much. That's not your role.
Right.
So, right,
Right.
you need to hire people who are smarter than you because to me, if I'm not learning from the people that I'm working with, then I need to figure out how, to adjust the work that they're doing because this may not be their niche. It may
Hmm.
not be their overall focus. Everyone is exceptional in certain areas, and sometimes you just need to help them find out what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Let's switch over to information technology and the time you spent
Okay.
there. So, given that background in your information technology, how do you believe technology can be leveraged to improve health, financial literacy, and overall lifestyle enhancement?
Again, I will go for balance.
Nice.
Technology, such as AI and other, technological tools, they can't replace the human element that we're all going to require in our
Hmm.
businesses. As I stated earlier, we're not machines. You cannot replace human emotions and feelings with an algorithm. When you're driven by your faith and the role that God plays in all of our lives, you know that the work required to serve people is based on a spiritual element given to us by our Maker.
Hmm.
Um, Technology is a tool, and we can use it and we need to use it really to streamline and track business processes and business functions, improving the services that we provide to those who need it, but it cannot replace the relationship we need to build or the collaborations that we need to promote. um, One of the main reasons again that I got into IT work is because of how hard I saw, the impact that my mother trying to acquire services through the
Mhm.
state and through federal entities impacted her. Again, I'm working two jobs, I'm trying to care for her. And this simple task that I thought should have been simple really upended both of our lives. And took a lot of time away, and it was a truly flawed system. So really streamlining a service that so many in this country need, I mean, it's important, um, but using functionality to replace the human element, that's required to truly assess a person's need, and understanding the urgency cannot be built into code for a developer to build. So we really need to take a look at, you know the fact that, again, with AI, which is a huge thing that, people are jumping into, a lot of businesses, federal government, they're trying to figure out how to use it for everything. We really need to understand that, we all carry a bias for different reasons. We need to remember that code and technical requirements are all from the perspective of an individual or a group of people. The needs of people and their circumstances evolve. So, we need real people to assess these type of scenarios in real time, and not hide behind technology to really take on roles that we just no longer want to do. Um, of course, there's certain aspects of paper pushing where it's collecting information, collecting data. Technology is good for ensuring that, information that's being gathered, assessing it for data and metrics. It's good for reviewing, and keeping track of all of that, because hand entry, data entry, that human factor can create a lot of errors and skew information. But when you're talking about truly working with people and understanding what their needs are, and ensuring that, again, a lot of the scenarios that people go through need to be assessed in real time, and not based on certain requirements that were built into a system through an algorithm. You have to ensure that people have that level of, just balance and openness, where they're being provided with the services that they need, not necessarily based on a catch-all group or a category that you're placing them in. At the end of the day, technology plays a role, but so do people.
Mhm.
And you cannot fully replace one with the other.
Yeah, you can't take humans out of the equation. I so much agree with you there.
Yeah,
And like what came to my mind again is yes, there's all these AI and all these business software tools, all these things that will make things more efficient in your business. But at the end of the day, it's all still to serve people. We're not. It's
exactly.
not robots serving robots, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
there's humans on both ends of business, even with this um introduction of more technology. So
And I think that's where, the perspective that we've been talking about this entire time, that, people are not machines, so you cannot adjust services to address them in such a manner. Again, there's a human element to the interactions that we have. Again, gathering information and data, are different things, but when it comes to interacting with people, you know, we all need that personal touch. We all
mhm,
need to hear each other's testimonies. We all need to understand that when you can hear, touch, and feel an individual's life through their testimony. That
mhm,
changes you. That
mhm,
changes who you are. It changes your direction. It changes your focus. And a lot of times it can walk you directly into your purpose. You
mhm,
can't get that from coding and algorithms and things that are just kind of processed, and it shoots out, a profile for you. These are the type of things that require relationships.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for that, Aaliyah. Aaliyah, I've just been blown away by of this conversation that we've had, of the answers that you've given to these questions. I feel enlightened on a lot of things. So once again, thank you. Now I want to kind of, if you have someplace, if someone wanted to find out more about how you could help them, where would you send them? Where can we, what kind of links can we give them?
I My website is under construction,
Okay.
but you can still access certain information on it. But it's going to be changing in the next several months. I'm doing a full revamp, so I'll definitely provide you with that information. And I would say for people, some of the writing that I've done, and this was really when I was going through my transition. I have a blog where I have a lot of you know. Content that I wrote about, trauma informed workplace,
Mm,
leading from within, and work life balance. And I'm really asked to speak a lot in forums in different industries on those specific topics. Because as we talk about transitioning from COVID back into the
hmm
workplace, there's just a level of distance that we have as human beings right now. And you see that in your day to day where
hmm
how people interact with one another in a grocery store. And, you just see this level of, there's a lack of personal, caring, personal empathy and understanding for people's, situations. And really being able to speak to that and understanding that again, trauma informed workplace, there are people that you work with that are sitting right next to you that you talk to on Zoom on a regular basis. Just ask them how they're doing.
hmm
Ask them how their family is. Know who their children are. Get to know them as an individual. It will truly change the dynamic of the relationship that you have with them, and it will improve the work atmosphere and the work that you do together. Because all of that allows you to connect, and the success that you have because you can focus on the productivity that you need to have at work as opposed to all of your problems, because now you're having discussions with other people and you're actually communing with one another.
hmm
That to me has really changed a lot. And I would really state to people, take a look at some of that information and think about the type of adjustments and changes that you can introduce into your workplace.
Yeah. Very interesting. I had a conversation with someone recently. Is like the water cooler has disappeared, because of COVID and a lot of virtual remote employment and all of that. And we kind of got to get back to that, so that people can have those bonds and build those relationships so that we can care about one another again, right? Because
Yeah.
you meet Sue at the water cooler, and Sue tells you about her mom who's going through something, right? And then you have that
Mhm.
bond and that team atmosphere that you're in this together kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say too that we can change the focus of the water cooler discussion and change it from, gossiping
Mm,
to helping.
mm-hmm.
That can be, again, a lot of shifts that people see. You see people talking about someone else. You can change that conversation, be that light, be that difference. I know a lot of people don't want to go back into the office. I completely understand. No one wants to sit in traffic all day.
Right.
And, a lot of people have built close relationships with their children because they can work from home more. Their children have more access to them. But I would say use this as an opportunity to come out of being an introvert. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people didn't realize that they were an introvert until, COVID. And some
Mm-hmm.
people have kind of built up this introvert behavior because of COVID. And honestly, they go, they log on to Zoom and they're just like, oh God, I don't want to be here. That level of loneliness and that space that you
Mm-hmm.
have carved out for yourself to be alone is really detrimental to the level of relationship building that not only other people need around you, but that you need in your life. We need each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have really lost that perspective. And that's where a lot of the struggle is coming from. We need to change our mindsets around the type of people that we are and the focus that we have. Pull that focus away from yourself, focus it on your neighbor, ask people how they're doing, see how you can provide support and services to other people. And I guarantee you, you will see a level of happiness in your life. You don't even know where it's coming from.
Oh, that's so good. And if I could, I'd kind of full circle that back to leadership, right? The
Mhm.
Everyone else is going to follow the leader's example. So it's very important that the leader demonstrates exactly what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. You have to be that light. You have to show people the path. You have
Yeah.
to, especially as Christians in business.
Mm,
When they talk about our testimony, and we may not be pastors and we may not be preachers, but this is our ministry.
hmm.
This is a part of our ministry. We have to step into it. We have to be that change. God put us here for a reason. He puts us in certain situations for a reason, regardless of people rolling their eyes. Oh my gosh, she's going to start talking about God again. No, I'm just going to ask you how you're doing, and then eventually you're going to ask me about God. And I've had that happen on many occasions.
Yeah. Well, if you talk about God around me and we're in person, I'm going to high five you. So
And that's I'm going to reach out my arms and just give you a big hug and be like, yes, that's what I'm
yes,
talking about.
yes,
So
yes, yes.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
well, I have one last question. I ask every entrepreneur that comes on here, and it's a free form question. So, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to pass on to other entrepreneurs?
um
We shared
Wake
so
up
much
every day.
already. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no. Wake up every day in gratitude.
Hmm.
Don't let anyone steal your joy. You have a purpose. Many of you already have a dream that you're either been thinking about every single day or you're currently trying to pursue it, which may be based on a trauma, an injustice, or something that you just believe needs to be changed within our society. Don't deny that feeling. Ask God to reveal your purpose and prepare you for it. And I would say with a guarantee, you'll see with those prayers that, God will start to change your life and you'll see changes within the next 5 years. That's how long, it took for me and a lot of other people that I talk to and that I coach, and some of my colleagues. Once they start to really start to build a fire for God and start to pray more and read the Bible, even if they have no idea where to start. They see these changes happen in their lives, and everyone has given me a time frame between 3 to 5 years. Most of them 5 years. So when God changes you, the Holy Spirit changes you. When He says little by little, you will see the changes, and people around you will start to give you confirmation that they see those changes too. And that's exactly what happened to me. I say go for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Wow. I love that. That might be one of the best at the end of the podcast answers ever. So
No,
thank
I
you for
appreciate that.
so thank you again, Aleah. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right.